Ladies and gentlemen, he's back on the podcast. The man of the hour, Mr. Josh Kerr, one of the most storied and prolific 1,500-meter runners in history, returns to the podcast for his second conversation. And if you're not familiar with Josh, he is a world champion, 1,500-meter gold medalist. He's an Olympic medalist in the 1,500-meter as well, an NCAA champion. And in this conversation, he tells me something I've never heard a defending champion say out loud, that standing on the start line last year at Worlds, he didn't want to be there. And today, Josh gets into what happened between the semi and the final when his calf started falling apart, the hotel room after, and the devastation, why he says this year will define his entire career, and why he genuinely believes nobody in the world can beat him when he's healthy. Not Jakob Ingebrigtsen, not Yard Naguse, not Cole Hocker, nobody. This is The Running Effect. This is the podcast where we chronicle and document the greatest athletes in the sport we all love so dearly. And if you enjoy it, give us a follow so you don't miss the best conversations with your favorite athletes, your favorite personalities, your favorite people in the sport of running. Give us a 5-star review. It takes next to no time. And share this podcast with a friend. This one is packed to the brim with wisdom. I always love my conversations with Josh. I find myself becoming a bigger fan after each and every single conversation. And you guys are in for a treat. He opens the door on so many things in this conversation. So I will no longer stand in the way between you and world champion, Mr. Josh Kerr. Josh Kerr, take me through the 5 to 10 seconds World Championships before you tear your calf. What's going through your head?
That's a great question to start us off. Yeah, I think going back into that mentality a little bit, it was my mentality in general is just like, how can I get to the line as quickly as possible? I mean, that's when you're fully injury free, and when you have a couple niggles here and there, you want to make sure that your main goal is to get to the line as quick as possible. That's just running in general. So that's just how my brain was working. I was kind of obviously shading what was going on in the calf, and I was able to kind of get away with it for the first almost half of the race. And so, before it went, I was like, I'm just playing this safe, just trying to conserve energy, kind of sitting in the back. Because obviously the way that the 1500 was run last year with kind of a bit more of the closers leading the way in the Diamond Leagues, I knew it was going to be a little bit slower with not many front runners in there. So, I was just kind of biding my time and was waiting to make my strike. But obviously the calf made its strike first, and then it would still get to the line as quickly as possible.
In the moment, I'm assuming you knew something happened, but what went through your head when you felt it? And then what were the moments like at the finish line when the emotion really started to set in?
It's a real weird one. It was probably not really what you expected. Obviously, I kind of overstretched, pulled the calf in the semifinal when I fell over the line. But that was almost disguised by like the big hematoma I had on the front of my leg, because I kicked my leg as well. And so just like a real weird, tough stiffness the next day in lower legs. And jumped on the table, got all that sorted, and then kind of became more apparent that the calf was in a bad spot. But to a fault, I like to lie around races of how I'm feeling. Like if I'm ill or injured or have any problems, I just want to race. I want to. I think it's just the way I was kind of built and raised was, you're always going to have adversities on race day. Your goal is to deal with those as best you can and get to the line as quickly as possible. So just focused on that, and it wasn't the right decision in hindsight, obviously. But would I do it again? I made the first 600 fine. I didn't have any problems in the calf. It just, the warm up, I was like, could be great, could be, adrenaline takes care of a lot, but didn't take care of that. So that's part of the story, I guess.
What's the worst lie you've ever told?
I was pretty close to racing Melrose last year, and I was possibly in one of the worst fitness, injury, and illness spots you've ever seen. And I think that one, if I got away with that one, that would have been a bad one, I think. But this calf one's probably up there for sure. Just because, I don't want to sit around and mope around and say like, oh, this is sore, that's sore. I'm in the war. I'm in the arena. I'm trying to, defend a world title. And, to me, that's worth the risk of being able to go out there and trying. And, I have a lot of smart people around me, and I was able to disguise all of my problems until I wasn't. So I wouldn't recommend it. I don't think it's great, but I do think it allows me to kind of deal with small adversities better than most. If it's being late or if it's a bad warm-up, bad night's sleep, just little things along the way. I like to deal with those as well as I can. But with the bigger stuff, I just need to kind of give that option over to the coaching staff and medical staff of being like, okay, you guys make the decision on this one. So,
do you think it's a common thing for professional athletes to do the opposite of what you do, which is they're not in shape, so they blame a sickness or something unrelated to get out of a race?
I don't know. I think maybe I would say it's a weird sport because everyone kind of has their own little quirks, and I think it depends what kind of background in sport that you played. My brother was a professional rugby player. My dad was a professional rugby player. So, I came from that background. It's what I wanted to be growing up. And that's not really a sport where you wallow in your problems. And so I think if you grew up that way and you play those kind of a little bit more physical sports, and maybe that's the way you look at things. But yeah, excuses aren't great. I think just like being honest is the best thing that you can do. I've tried to do that across the board in my career, and people don't love honesty sometimes though, because it's not the answer that makes the most sense. But the calf was the problem that day. It's pretty obvious. For Melrose, I was pretty ill, and I think that's what's been nice about the YouTube stuff is kind of showing the behind the scenes of like what's happening in real time. So we're showing exactly, we weren't making any excuses here. This is kind of the real life story of what happened.
I think no matter which decision you make in any specific scenario, there's always going to be a group that's pissed off. It's like, if you didn't run the world champs, there would have been people that was like, oh, he's such a wuss. He totally should have ran through it. And then on the other end, since you tore your calf, they're going to be the people who are like, oh, he doesn't have his long-term career in mind. So the thing, man, is like, you can never make everyone happy. So it's about, you, yourself, your team, what matters most to them. But it's funny you mentioned last year's Millrose, because one of my buddies, he's one of the best photographers in the sport. And I think at the time you were doing like a Brooks photo shoot in Austin, either the week before or the week after.
Yeah.
And I knew, he said that you were on the shoot, and I remember being like, is he healthy? And he was like, no, he looked really sick. And so I was like, oh, it's legit. Okay, it's legit. He wasn't lying.
Actually, I had, now thinking back, we did have I don't know, maybe this was a different photo shoot, but we had a photo shoot that was meant to be right after Melrose that we had to cancel because of it.
That's what it was.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that was all part of it. It was, that was probably one of the tougher like race weekends. Cause it's so like, I even had one last weekend too. I don't know if it's just, I'm getting old, but I'm just dealing with a bit more adversity around races, which is frustrating, but we're walking this line of fitness, and especially this time of year, it's just not really worth going after things and big swings at things and not feeling and ready to go 100%. Plus, with the weather through the winter and stuff like that, indoor season is just a little bit tougher. Any small injury and things like that can be exposed a bit more with the cold weather, and also there's a lot of illnesses going around. So yeah, it's a weird time. You never know who's going to show up at races and who's not. And I think there's a lot of people at the top of the sport right now that are struggling with things, and I think that has a lot to play with it.
Wouldn't you agree too that in the history of the sport, it's remarkably rare for an athlete to have like a lights out indoor season and lights out outdoor season? I think at Grant Fisher last year, that guy looked like he was going to win double gold, and it just seemed he was burnt out come World Championships, and that seems to be a common theme.
Yeah, especially
have to choose which one you focus on.
Yeah, the long seasons are going to get you. I think Grand Slam, like a full indoor season, and then Grand Slam, then hitting Diamond Leagues, then going to the World Championships. I'm under the belief that that's not possible, but people try it. I think what happens is you get hot and you get confident, and you get the ball rolling, and you find some success. And someone like Grant, like obviously he's on that kind of threshold, a lot of sessions, like mileage kind of grind. And so I think he was able to roll with the punch. His body's able to roll with the punches really well with races, and just almost putting the races in there instead of the sessions. And, I think he put on such a great performance for the first, 7 months of the season, and maybe came up short of his goals at the World Championships. But I mean, I still view that as one hell of a season. I think, some of the races he ran indoors were incredible. I think the way that he showed up in Grand Slam was incredible. But, it depends how you view the sport. Like, do you view the sport in the Diamond League season, the indoor season, Grand Slam, or do you see it as the major championships? And I mean, he was only 2 races short of almost the perfect season. So, I was pretty impressed by it because, watching him live in Grand Slam was pretty special too.
Before fully moving on, I want to go back to the world champs and that in between the semi and the final, dealing with some small niggles. You think you get them worked out with the trainer, but what's going through your brain? Because I'm sure as a professional athlete, normally that in-between time, you just try to kill time with your mind. But I'm sure when there's a little bit of adversity or a thought that, this could go haywire, was your mind spinning over those 48 hours?
Yeah, it was actually the worst it's been. I work a lot with a performance coach, and we work a lot on the kind of mental side of the sport. And so I have my ways to deal with things. We try not to bring too many problems into the next day. But it was just, I just didn't want to be there, if I'm being honest. Like I was like, this is not how I want it to feel. This is not even, if I had gone out and been able to get through that final without a calf problem, it was a really hard championships that late on in the year to be dealing with the mental load that I was dealing with. It was just, it was sad because I'd worked so hard to get to the fitness level I was at. If I'm, to be brutally honest, it wasn't this most stacked world final you've ever seen because of injuries and problems and illnesses and all this stuff going on. And so it felt like, it just didn't feel like it should have. It didn't feel like my time. But it's frustrating. It's part of the sport. And I think I've learned a lot from it for sure. When you have, as many major championships I've been to, back from 2017 into 2025, it's just, you learn a lot from each one. And I've definitely learned a lot more from my failed championships than I have from my wins. But, I'd like to get back to fucking winning at some point. That'd be nice. But here we are working towards it.
Fighting every day for it. Take me into that mental, it sounded like mentally you didn't have necessarily the fighting spirit you've had in the past at championships where you've won. Did you kind of know deep down that the result wasn't going to be there because of that internal state, despite maybe hoping that you would just be wrong on the day?
Yeah, definitely. When things aren't going to go your way, especially, even during warm up, I kind of looked at Julian and I was like, is it good? I don't know. It's not fully gone, but it feels vulnerable for sure. And so it's a weird spot to be going into major championships like that. But, I'm very lucky to be in the positions that I am in the sport, and I've made my way to the final, and it was my spot. So, that's the way I chose to use it. And didn't quite work out. But I mean, these challenges is part of sport in general. And I think, could I have done anything else to be, not pulling my calf in that final? No. Medically, no. But would I do it again? Yeah, I would, because I'm going to take that risk. Because this is the part of sport that I'm here for. Like the major championship finals, world championship final, indoor, outdoor, Olympics, that's what I'm here for. Everything else to me is, building up towards something bigger. And so it's the way that I view it. And some people are very different, and other people who are purists of the sport are different, but it's what I'm here for. It's how I view my career. And so, that's worth the risk to me.
When you crossed the finish line, did you feel more frustration or relief?
I was, to be honest, at 200 to go, obviously I realized that, as stupid as it sounds, at 200 to go, I realized I wasn't going to win. But I was able to watch the race on the screen at 200 to go. And I thought Jake had won. And so I was pretty excited about that. And then I realized that he didn't. And so that added to the failure of the day. And so, hobbled my way through, made sure to shake as many people's hands as I could, and got out of there. Because I'm not like a big, as the reigning champion, you go in as a favorite, regardless if you're the fittest or people think that you're the best or whatever. So, new champion, don't want to make this about me. I just want to get out of there as quickly as possible. Don't do any media and just go home. I was actually in my hotel room probably within 15 minutes of that final. Hobbled out, got straight into an Uber and left. Because I didn't know what emotions were going to come up, but I didn't want that to be around anyone or anything that could be affected by that. And so, I was just back in my room, on the table, trying to figure out what the heck happened, and sat there with my now wife, fiance at the time, my parents, and Julian, and they just sat there, and I was just like, I don't know, like this is just going to be part of it, and not thinking too far into the future or anything like that. But it was my first major injury, so I still obviously didn't have to have surgery on it because it's a calf, but it was a long road back, but it started that next day, and hobbled my way to breakfast and got on with my life. But yeah, it sucked. It really sucked.
Was the high of winning world champs Budapest higher than the low of being in your hotel room after, or vice versa?
Yeah, I mean, look, man, like I'm in a very lucky position in the sport where I have championships behind me and I have these amazing memories behind me. I'm still surrounded by the right people. And so even in the lows, it doesn't feel that low. It doesn't feel like I've failed. I have a great brand that back me and that believe in me. And that's part of sport. If you're going to be at the highest level for 10 years, you're going to run into these problems. But yeah, I'm chasing that high for sure. But it's, that first major championship gold medal is something that is it would be hard to top. I think outside of an Olympic gold medal, I don't think anything will ever top that. If I go and win a World Outdoor Championships in 2027, I think that will be an amazing feeling. But that first one is pretty special.
What did you do to kind of get your mind, your body back after that tear? Besides getting married, maybe checking the second phone, doing a little doom scroll. Take me through how you mentally bounced back from it and got excited about running again.
It's just different. Like I'd gone through such a brutal camp from a training standpoint, and it was just a different challenge. It was like, all right, let's get in the pool. I haven't been in the pool in years, so let's get in the pool, let's figure out the right plan to get back, and let's put a race on the calendar, pretty much, because that's the worst thing that you can do is not have like that end goal in mind. And that race on the calendar was Millrose. I put that race on the calendar as soon as maybe a couple of weeks, and I said, look, Ray, I don't know if it's a mile or the 3K, get back to me after the wedding, but I know I'm doing it 100%, and we can announce it sometime in January. But this is going to keep me, doing what I need to do. And it came back a lot quicker than I thought. I think just not having many problems in the past, it just my body was pretty resilient to get back to baseline. And it was off season's a bit more fun when you can dick around and do fun stuff. But I was in crutches for a bit and just doing pool workouts. So yeah, it was its own challenge, but we were in Tokyo for another 10 days. And so I was able to hang out with some friends and family, and we had a good time. But yeah, hobbling around for a little bit. But once I got the crutches, I was mobile, so it was all good.
More nervous before a big championship race, or more nervous before saying your vows?
Way more nervous for the wedding. If I'm being honest, I was a bit mess, actually. Because it's just like, I don't know, for some reason it was just way more out of my comfort zone control. And it's like, there's 140 odd people there that very well, and they're all kind of mingling in their own ways, and you're like, this is such a weird dynamic. But it was incredible. It was best day of my life. It was so awesome. So can't compare very well. I think I just feel very in control on race day, and more people are nervous around me. And then for the wedding, I was completely nervous and no one else was, within my like groomsmen and parents and stuff like that. So yeah, all dynamic for sure.
After the wedding, honeymoon, whatever it is, was it nice to not have to wake up, hop in the cold plunge right away, have to eat the private chef meals, live a little life?
Yeah, it was great. It was, I'm starting to try and bring that a bit more into life where, I live a very structured life, and adding a weekend trip, or, bringing a little bit more flexibility, and just allows you to be as locked in as possible when it's time. So trying to be a bit more light with it. But yeah, it was a really good time. And, we always have a good time in the Dominican Republic, and we were there for a couple of weeks. So yeah, it was a blast. Put on a couple of LBs and got the mileage in, and was able to bring it back for Melrose. So yeah, it's best of both worlds, really.
Do you think being married and being married to your spouse specifically has helped maybe smooth out some of the edges that are almost too serious to a detriment when it comes to training or lifestyle?
Yeah, I would say so. I'm to a fault kind of serious and intentional, but she has a harder day than I do. She's a resident doctor, dermatologist, so it's a lot busier of a day, and so it's allowed me to kind of busy my day and end at 5, and almost work it like a work day, and be very much just a normal, husband at night, and that's kind of been a fun dynamic with that. But yeah, she's on the grind too, so it's fun doing that side by side, really.
Getting back into things for Millrose Games, you documented a lot of it on YouTube, as you said. Highly recommend our audience goes subscribes to you and follows along in that domain of your life. But I mean, you released some of the workouts you were doing, really world class. What do you think was different about this build up to Millrose versus ones in the past, or just like your winter season after undergoing kind of your first major injury?
Yeah, it's a weird one. Obviously, spent a lot of time with the team, just kind of building back into mileage, and we have kind of a fun fall as part of the Brooks Beach team. We spend a lot of time with the company at HQ in Seattle, and we're just trying to build the team dynamic a lot as well. And so that's been really fun with some of the newbies coming in, and then some of the veterans kind of staying around. So that's been good. But yeah, pretty regular year. I mean, obviously we were expecting Melrose to be very fast because of the field. Obviously that didn't end up happening, but it was a good race regardless. And so now we're just running into can't really find a race problems, which is, an interesting thing to have as part of the season. But, back in 2024, I had a very similar indoor season where, run Melrose, run World Indoors, and then start heading towards the outdoor season. So yeah, it was a weird build back, but a lot more smooth than you'd think. Once I kind of got into the routine with cross training and getting back on the ground, walking, jogging, kind of fartlek stuff, and then back into running, with the distraction of wedding planning and things like that, it worked out pretty well.
What was your perspective on the Millrose field as it started to shape up? Obviously, that race is always going to be stacked, but I feel like this year, specifically on paper, specifically before Fisher pulled out due to sickness, who knows if it was honesty or a front, as we were talking about before. I said it, not you. I love Grant. He's a good athlete. I think it was potentially the most stacked indoor race ever. So what was it like to be a part of that field?
Yeah, I think we're going to have a tough time, like making a better field even at World Indoors, just because the Americans are pretty dominant in the middle distances right now. So I would say that I went to the press conference with Grant the couple of days before, and you could kind of tell he's a little bit off color. So I do believe that was the reason. And so we actually had planned that as well. Like you can see in the YouTube video, like, we had discussed the night before or 2 days before, like, hey, like if he's not in it, what does it look like? Because I'd kind of guessed that was the way it was going to go. But yeah, I think those races are great. I mean, you have a crop of athletes through the NCAA right now that are now professionals that are awesome. Maybe don't have the racing experience at these races quite as much as maybe the kind of older heads, but everyone's hungry and ready to get after it. And so, yeah, it was just pretty much get good positioning, wait for the emotional moves to happen, and then try and close better. I made a couple of mistakes in the last 400, but first race back after the calf stuff, getting through injury free was kind of the biggest thing for me. And I was hoping to run a little bit faster, so I'm not running into qualification issues for World Indoors. But here we are. That's we can blame Grant on that one. But that's okay.
Okay, Josh, Mr. Honesty here. Do we miss Jakob? Because I miss Jakob as a fan of the sport. I miss Jakob. I miss obviously 807 is still a fast race, but I think people miss the Josh Jakob love story a little bit.
I mean, look, I am very much under the. I like racing the best guys in their prime and coming out on top. The same way that that World Championships last year didn't have maybe, I think, 6 out of the top 10 ranked guys in the 1500 in the world were in that final. Like, that's not the finals that we're talking about in 10 years' time. Sadly, that's just the reality of it. And so, yes, I want the best athletes at their best racing consistently, because I think what the kind of 2023 to 2020 through until 2024 season is like, these are races with something on the line, and anyone can win it at any angle. And so that's what we want to do in this sport. We want to make races people want to watch. And so if that means that you're sitting there saying that I want him back into the mix, then yeah, 100%, let's do it. I think that's what makes the races exciting. If you take me out, take Cole out, take him out, take Yard out, like, it's not as fun to watch. It is the reality. So yeah, I think it makes a big difference to the viewership as well.
I'm an American, so fellow Americans can take my American card in the comments, but Jakob's just so fun to race. You take Cole or Yard out, and it's just different. Like, I think specifically the prime and the peak of you and Jakob. I asked you this last podcast we did because it was before the World Champs, and people thought he would still be in the race, make the final, etc. I was like, is this era coming to a close? Because with Yard and Cole, there's almost unpredictability in how they would race. The best thing with Jakob is, like, you could expect every single time, but you would never know what the outcome was. Like, you knew he was going to go to the front every time, and then it was just a question of, is Josh or someone else going to pull up on his shoulder with 150 to go? And it was like almost like 3 minutes of being edged. Yeah, it was crazy.
I would say maybe this era is coming to a close over the 1500. I don't think this era is coming to a close in the sport. That's what I would say. I think we as a group and a collective will race probably at a different distance again sometime in the future. That's the way that I would look at it. I mean, 1500 is obviously getting faster. We have a new crop of athletes coming through that, if they want to show a little bit of personality and they want to talk their shit, then, I think it would be fun to to keep eyes on our distance. And I think there's a lot of personalities that can come out over the next couple of years as we lead into another Olympic Games. But for me, I'm just, I just want to get back to winning. That's my main goal. I want to, for me, I want to be remembered as the best 1500 meter runner in this era and in any era. So I'm one Olympic medal away from being the most medaled 1500 meter athlete of all time in the Olympics. And these are the goals that I have. And, it starts with getting the outdoor season 1500s right. My, current goal is to be the world indoor 3K champion. So yeah, I just need to get back to winning, man. It's a big step, but this younger crop of athletes coming through and there's lots of exciting, younger names, but I think I'm still the best. And so I'm focused on that, but you just got to keep putting the work in and make sure the body's healthy. So,
will we see you take a swing at any point of the 5K coming years?
Yes.
You're trying to resist it as much as possible.
It's just gone so shit over the last 4 years is the problem. 13:20 is subpar is probably the best way to. It
was fast when you ran it though. I remember when you were breaking it down with Ribich.
Yeah.
And it was it was a good time back then, and now we got college freshmen running it.
I mean, yeah, it wouldn't probably make NCAA D2 nationals, but that's part of it. And I think it's funny. I ran a workout with Habtum on Friday of last week, and we finish it, and he's like, "Oh, when are you gonna run a 5K?" I'm like, "No, never." He's like, the session we just did, you could break 13. I'm like, I'm fully aware that I'm a 1250 guy, but I don't need to prove that to anyone else. That's going to be in my psyche, and I don't need to prove it. But no, I think the issue I had with the 5K was every time I ran a camp, April, May, June time, I was just coming in with issues like calf issues and illness issues, just issues. And so it's not worth the risk for me to go and run, something in the 1250s. Like I don't care enough. I think I just don't find it the most interesting distance to watch. So I don't really want to race it. A bunch of 15 guys are running the 5K at the championships, and I don't find it very interesting to watch. That's just my opinion. So yeah, I love the 1500. I think it's the best distance to watch. So I love racing it.
You mentioned the 1500 meter era kind of shifting in real time. What's your take on the prodigy himself, Sam Ruth?
I think he's pretty awesome. I mean, he got battered and bruised around a little bit in that race at JDL. So I think that's kind of showing, because you forget how 16 is so young. But yeah, I think the time
he'd be a junior in high school in the US.
It's ridiculous. The times that he's running is like, okay, for me, I just kind of forget his age. I'm like, I view him as as just an athlete that's going to, trying to go after, the championship. So I watched him race in JDL, and I was, excited to see how he kind of mix it up with the kind of the big boys, really. And obviously a little bit lack of experience in there, but he's shown across multiple distances that he's the real deal. So it's fun to see that, the Cam Myers, even Laros, and him. It's like, that next crop of athletes coming through, and it's starting to get younger and younger. But as a 28-year-old, I'm starting to feel really fucking old watching some of these guys race. But I haven't raced any of them myself, really. So it'll be a fun one to start doing that in the outdoor season.
Yeah, it is crazy to think you would have been 12 when he was born, which is kind of hard to believe. But what's interesting about these kids, and as a master tactician, I feel like you could speak to this. I love Sam. I was his first ever podcast interview last year. He's a great kid. I've had on, Cam Myers, I think is his name. He's another great kid who I've talked to. But these guys, it's like, it seems, Cam did really well at Millrose, so I'll give him that. But it seems like the Laros, the Sam Ruth, as you mentioned, the Cam Myers, like when you're a kid, you can time trial really well. But in these tactical big races, maybe with the exception of Cam this year, because it seems like he's kind of coming onto the scene, but the experience you get from racing guys like you who have done this for 5 to 10 years, just tactically, you're not going to beat them. You need reps. You can run 348 all day, but to beat someone like Cole Hocker, you're going to need to beat him at his own game and not a new game.
Yeah, that's part of it. It's all racing, because what happens is, the time trials of what you can run in a time trial, you then need to figure out how to run that tactically at the same speed. And so making those high level decisions is, when you're tired and it's all happening very quick, you gotta be able to be put in those positions a little bit more. And so, you'll see the tactical errors happen a bit more often, but, they're racing a lot. All of them are racing quite a lot. And so, hopefully they find that quickly, but then it's a balance of like, okay, then we go back to the last year Grant Fisher issue of like, how many races is it going to take for you to be ready to go, but how many races is it going to take for you to be burnt out? So it's a weird balance that, the coach athlete relationship, they'll figure out over the years. And I don't know what it looks like to gain experience as a 16-year-old at this stage. I mean, I went to the World Championships when I was, would I have been 19 or 20, and got knocked out in the first round and learned so much from it. But now they're 3 or 4 years younger than that, and being able to run fast time. So we'll see. I think it's not on the front of my mind on the radar. I'm not thinking about it too much, but I do love watching them race. I think it's an interesting storyline. That's what we're looking for in this sport is, how is the new talent going to go up against the old heads, and that's fun to watch. So I hopefully will be involved in a lot more of that in the outdoor season, and we'll see who's going to be putting their hat in the ring for World Indoor 3K as well.
I think the craziest thing about Sam is I asked him about his training and his coach on the podcast as well. He trains like a normal high school athlete, and that's what shocks me. He's not really training like a pro. Like that, I think he's around like 50, 55 miles a week. So I'm like that his ceiling, I think, is remarkably high in the sport. As you think about, present 1500-meter running, who do you view as, biggest competition, biggest threats to the crown? And as this era is starting to shift, do you think those names will change year over year, stay the same?
I do think that the names right now are pretty consistent. I think, the Diamond League season always kind of exposes some people of who's going to come through it, maybe, at least make the final. But everyone deals with pressure in different ways, and everyone deals with the racing in different ways. But, genuinely, and I know this is a really media trained answer, the biggest competition I have is myself. I just if I can get to line healthy, good to go, I don't believe anyone can deal with me. But obviously you've got great guys that have championships, but I genuinely don't see them as an issue. I don't know if it's just because I'm not scrolling through Instagram on the day-to-day seeing what people are doing, but it's like no one comes to mind. I think obviously Cole's doing really well with some of his races right now, but I don't think he can deal with me over a mile. I don't think these guys can deal with me over 3K if I'm fit and ready to go. So I really don't care how people are doing. I'm just focused on myself, putting the work in, and I'm pretty close, which is awesome. I'm trying not to take the risks like I did in previous years of like, oh, well, I'm not 100%, so I'm just going to go out there. I'm like trying to be a little bit more smart with the way that I'm viewing long-term races for the season. I have some big goals this year, and we have a couple championships as Brits with commies and Euros and Ultimate Championships. So it's a long season. I'm trying to take my experience into it, and if you see me out there racing this year, you know that I'm good to go. And if I'm not winning that race, then it's been a bad race for me, I would say.
You know what you're sounding like? You're sounding like prime Conor McGregor right now. It's got me fired up. Would you say best days are behind you or ahead of you? How do you feel about, you're 28, you made the age comment a few times, but also I see running 8:07 after how the fall went with the calf injury is pretty unheard of, pretty crazy. So I think that would indicate a lot of good running ahead. How do you view 28-year-old Josh in 2026 in relation to your career as a whole?
I think this year is going to define my career, if I'm being honest. I think the goals that I have that are coming together pretty well right now it's going to be my most memorable year. And I think this is a year that people are going to talk about from a career standpoint. It's not like an off year where I'm like, oh, okay, well, I don't really have big goals. Like, these are, with the amount of championships we have and some of my, other goals with, worlds and things like that. Like, I see this as kind of, I'm the most motivated and the most experienced, and my body's feeling pretty resilient right now. And I'm going to be under race coming into the outdoor season, and I see that going my way. So it's that's the way I view it. I would say the best days are ahead of me for sure. Everyone's going to say that, I think, a little bit, especially when your sponsors are still paying you. But it's always a fun conversation. But with the conversation I've been having with Danny and Julian, it's like we have some really fun goals that we're putting together right now. So it's great.
Let's talk about those two dudes, Julian and Danny, as well as anyone else from your team who you want to acknowledge. I think it's rare for a professional athlete in 2026 to be with the same coach, the same sponsor. I think last year, the year before, you penned a long-term deal with Brooks, so you're not going anywhere anytime soon. And I think loyalty is something that you really value. So it's been cool to see you as an athlete kind of live that out and be with the same squad year over year ever since coming out of New Mexico. How much faith and belief do you put in your system? And it seems like those two dudes specifically are going to be lifelong friends outside of the sport. So can you give them their flowers? And what have they done for you in your career? And what's this kind of whole ecosystem been like throughout your years running?
Yeah, it's everything that an athlete would want and dream of having from a situation. When I came out of college, I was looking for a coach that believed that I could be the best in the world. And at the time in the NCAA, like, we weren't running professional level times. And so it just takes a little bit of vision and a bit of bullshit. You got to kind of bullshit your way to getting athletes. And Danny was able to provide that. It was difficult at that point. There was a lot of question marks around a lot of groups. from like are you doing the sport the right way? That was obviously very important to me. And so Danny was just like ticking all those boxes. You know, he had that long-term vision, his approach to training, the way that he viewed altitude, the whole thing, and you know, match that with a brand that isn't going to put reduction clauses in your contracts and want to support you long term. I mean, I've been with Brooks since 2018, and you know, I'm signed. That this is me. This is my career. I won't be running for a different brand. So yeah, it was that balance, and then, you know, can we put championships together? And I think when it comes to coaching, anyone can coach, if I'm being honest. I truly believe anyone that's been around this sport can coach. Is how you peak your athletes at the major championships that I think is the difference between a good coach and a bad coach. And so that's how I view coaching. And I think Danny and I have been able to, you know, balance each other and challenge each other as much as possible over the last, you know, 8 years, to get the results we have. And, you know, you then throw Julian in the mix, and yeah, our meetings are pretty funny. We all have very different views going in and very different goals when it comes to racing and, you know, long-term vision and things like that. And I think Danny's a bit more on the conservative. I'm very much pushing everything, and then Julian's somewhere in between of balancing us out. And you know, Julian's my guy, like day to day. You know, he'll you know, his ego is put to the side and does everything and anything that he can to make any one of the beasts the best athlete that they can be. And if that's, you know, helping from a mental standpoint, if it's cutting my hair, if it's, you know, going to grab me an extra water bottle that's not been opened, it's just the most random stuff that he brings to the table. But he also understands training and the philosophy and believes in Danny. And yeah, I would never want to leave. You know, I don't know why we haven't got a line out the door at wanting athletes that are wanting that situation. You know, maybe I don't scream it enough from the rooftops, but I don't know an athlete that has a situation like similar to that, with no question marks around their coaching staff and people that just are passionate and care. And it's an awesome ride. And, you know, both of them have families, and yeah, we're super close. So yeah, no complaints over here, but I've got to hold up my end of the bargain this year, I think, a little bit. So we've got some big results coming.
If an athlete's listening and here's what you just said there and craves someone wanting to believe in them, where can they start in terms of getting someone to believe in them? Because I know as an individual, you don't want to go up to someone and say, you know, believe in me, be my cheerleader. But, you know, sometimes you got to ask for things, or sometimes you do have to prove yourself. So what would you say to a young athlete coming up who doesn't feel like they have the support system, but craves the attention and the, you know, all the systems and setup you just mentioned?
I mean, it's a realistic roadmap, and being honest with yourself of your own ability and your top end. So, you know, for me, it was not like, hey, Danny, I need to be a world champion within a year. What actually happened was Brooks sat down with my parents at Azusa Pacific, you know, when I ran the NCAA record. So this was the night before in Applebee's, and they put a presentation together of like, we're going to take him from here to Olympic medals and world championships within, you know, my first contract was like 6.5 years. And that's kind of how they looked at it. And when I had the conversations with Danny, it was like, it's not, you know, I'm not trying to bite everything off and go out and try and win right now. But it's like, how can I be the peak of my career when I become anywhere between 25 and 30, pretty much. And, you know, as an athlete, what I think you really need to do is sit down and have a realistic time frame of when you are going to be your best and how you're going to get there. You know, going into specific races, learning things from each race and taking it on to the next one and just getting some momentum over the years. And then to find that, it's just like, you got to dig in and figure out who these people are. You need to figure out who the coach is as a person first. You know, the people that I work with, you know, Ray as well. It's like, you know, anyone that I work with, it's like, who are you as a person first? And then let's do business. And so, that's, you know, I have some pretty awesome people in my corner, and I know that shit hits the fan. I know who they are. You know, over the last few years, it's kind of been a bit more of that versus the glory, but you know, that weeds out the wrong people. And so I think that's what's helped me along the way. And, I think it's just also having the balls to let people go and move on if it doesn't feel like the right thing. And I think athletes kind of hold on to things because it's easier longer than they maybe should. But yeah, it's tough. It's, you're running a business at the end of the day. You're the one that's hiring these people. They're not hiring you. So be honest and be strict and just be a good human. And I think you'll find it.
Yeah, you're the CEO of the team, and you're going to decide who comes on board, who gets off board. And ultimately, at the end of the day, if the athlete or the CEO of the company isn't successful, it gets blamed on the CEO and his leadership decisions. So wrapping up here, when you look back at the end of your career one day, how do you want Josh Kerr to be remembered within the sport? And then how do you want Josh Kerr to be remembered outside of the sport?
I think in the sport, I would like to think that people think of whenever they see me on the start line, they're like, this is going to be an awesome race. I need to tune in. I'm going to leave it all out there. And if I feel great, I'm going to tell you. If I don't feel great, I'm not going to say anything. It's something along those lines. And hopefully people can find inspiration from that. People, from where I'm from and going through the systems that I went through, I'm trying to connect as much as possible with the athletes to try and help as much as I can. And, even outside the sport, all I'm trying to do right now is, document what it's like to be at the top end of the sport and the challenges that come with that, but also the awesome parts that come with that as well. I want to show that if you want to make it to the top end of the sport, make a living and get the big medals, you can do it clean. You can do it the right way with great people around you. And so if I can keep sharing that and exposing that, then hopefully that next generation that comes through, there's just a little bit more belief in there. And it's tough to have role models because you don't really know who they are, but I'm trying to share as much as I can. Even at races too, I'm trying to share a little bit more on Instagram and things like that, just to be like, this is what it's like. This is, if this is what you want to do, this is possible. So yeah, just trying to give back a little bit more over the next few years, and hopefully you guys can see that over socials. But yeah, just trying to be more reachable, I guess.
I love it. Josh, final question for you. Finish the sentence for me. Josh Kerr's 2026 was blank.
Memorable. And I
love it.
I will explain that a little bit more maybe as the season keeps going. But yeah, we have some fun announcements coming up. So it will be, it's going to be a memorable year.
The true promoter at his core. Final question. Leave us on a cliffhanger. Josh, I always appreciate our conversations. As I was thinking a minute ago as we were wrapping up, I saw an Instagram reel. Yes, I'm on Instagram. No burner phone for me. And it was the difference between being honest and transparent. And I think you said on this conversation, you're very honest, but I would take it a step further. You're very transparent. I think there's a difference between being honest, just like kind of first response, first level. I feel like you know how to go levels deep. And I think that's where transparency comes out. And that's what athletes and fans love. I'll be the first to say I was a Jakob Ingebrigtsen fanboy years ago. And I think ever since our first interaction with each other, I was like, how could you not, how could this not be your favorite athlete? Like, this guy is true to his core, a nice guy, and the type of athlete that you want to watch race and support. So I always love our conversations, man. I always appreciate the transparency. And I can't wait for a memorable, in your words, 2026.
Thank you. You got me fired up. I've got some mileage to hit today. Make money Monday. Let's do it.
Let's go.